The Galactic Academy's survival course Omega-7 had claimed more lives than any war in recent memory. Carved into the hostile moon of Krath-9, it was designed to push the galaxy's elite warriors to their absolute limits. Of the 10,000 species that had attempted it over 3 centuries, only 847 individuals had ever completed it. The mortality rate stood at 34%. Commander Vexther, a towering Krillian with obsidian scales and 6 battle-scarred arms, stood at the entrance to the course, his mandibles clicking in anticipation. He had overseen this facility for 20 standard cycles, and he had seen the best of the best broken by its challenges. Today, however, was different. Today, humans had arrived. Jiggy stepped off the transport shuttle with the casual confidence of someone arriving at a beach resort rather than the galaxy's most notorious death trap. She was average height for a human, with sun-darkened skin, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the facility with the kind of assessment that made Vexther's combat instincts tingle. Behind her came Alex, a lanky youth who couldn't have been more than 18 Earth years. His easy smile seemed wildly inappropriate given the circumstances. He carried a standard-issue pack that looked somehow lighter than it should, despite containing the same survival equipment every participant received. Commander Vexther, Jiggy extended her hand in the strange human greeting ritual. Jiggy Martinez, human delegation. This is Alex Chen. We're here for the course. Vexther's translator implant struggled with her accent, but the meaning was clear. He didn't take her hand. You understand what you're attempting. This is Omega-7. This is not your species' training ground. This is where warriors come to prove themselves against death itself. Alex laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, we read the brochure. Sounds fun. Vexther's scales rippled with irritation. Fun. 3 weeks ago, a Thorgan champion, a being that could crush steel with its bare hands, died in the acid marshes on day 2. Last month, a Valkyrie combat prodigy trained since birth succumbed to the thermal variations. These were not weak beings. Jiggy shrugged, no disrespect to the fallen commander, but we're ready. When do we start? Vexther studied them for a long moment. Humans were new to the Galactic Council, barely a century since first contact. They were soft, fragile things compared to most spacefaring species. No natural armor, no redundant organs, no environmental resistances worth mentioning. Their homeworld was a paradise by galactic standards, moderate temperatures, abundant water, gravity so light it was practically negligible. They had no business here. Dawn, he said finally, you begin at dawn. Dawn on Krath-9 came with a temperature drop to minus 60 degrees Celsius. The course began in the frozen wastes, where participants had to traverse 15 kilometers of ice fields riddled with crevasses and patrolled by indigenous predators with thermal sensing capabilities. Vexther watched from the observation center as Jiggy and Alex prepared. To his surprise, they didn't activate the standard thermal suits. Instead, they wore layered human clothing, something Alex called just our winter gear from back home. Temperature is dropping, Vexther announced through the comm system. You should activate your environmental protection. We're good, Jiggy replied, checking Alex's pack straps. This is actually warmer than Minnesota in January. Vexther didn't know what a Minnesota was, but he marked the comment in his log. The starting klaxon sounded. What happened next would be discussed in Academy briefings for years to come. Jiggy and Alex didn't just traverse the frozen wastes, they jogged through them. When a crevasse appeared, they drove spikes into the ice with practiced efficiency and rappelled down, then climbed the other side with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. When the ice predators, 6-legged monsters with jaws that could snap a Krillian in half, emerged, Alex actually approached one. Check it out, Jiggy, it's like a giant snow leopard. Don't pet it, Alex. I'm not gonna. The creature lunged. Alex sidestepped with reflexes that seemed impossible for his frame, then scrambled up an ice wall with his bare hands, laughing the entire time. They cleared the frozen wastes in 4 hours. The record was 11. Day 2 brought the acid marshes, where the atmosphere itself could burn through most species' skin. The pH levels made the environment barely survivable, even with full protective gear. Jiggy and Alex walked through wearing nothing but breathing masks and clothes they'd coated with some local plant resin. This is like that time we went camping in the Everglades during that chemical spill, Alex said conversationally. That wasn't camping, Alex. That was an environmental disaster. Yeah, but we camped during it. Vexther watched in disbelief as they navigated the marshes by watching how the local microorganisms moved, using biological indicators to find safe paths. When they got hungry, Jiggy actually tasted various marsh plants, determining which were edible by some method Vexler couldn't fathom. "How do you know which plants are poisonous?" he demanded over the comm. "Rule of thumb, if it's fuzzy or milky, probably bad. But honestly, Commander, I've built up resistance to most toxins. Comes with the human metabolism. We can process some pretty nasty stuff." They cleared the marshes in 6 hours. The record was 19. By day 5, the entire academy was watching. Humans were supposed to be fragile. They were supposed to be the soft species that contributed art and philosophy to the galaxy, not the ones who treated Omega-7 like a morning hike. The thermal canyons should have been impossible. Temperatures swung from 200 degrees Celsius in the day to -100 at night. The shifts happened rapidly, causing most species' biology to simply shut down from the shock. Jiggy and Alex built a shelter from canyon debris and spent the day underground, emerging at night. "Humans are persistence hunters," Jiggy explained when Vexler asked how they could possibly tolerate the thermal shock. "We're designed to just keep going. Our bodies regulate temperature through sweat, through shivering, through a dozen different mechanisms. We're adaptable, it's kind of our thing." The volcanic fields came next. Alex fell into a lava tube and Vexler prepared to mark him as a casualty. 3 minutes later, the young human emerged, singed but grinning, carrying a strange crystalline rock. "Found a geode, this is so cool." By the time they reached day 14, the final challenge, Vexler had stopped trying to understand humans through the lens of normal biology. They operated on different principles entirely. The final challenge was the maze of predators, a 50-kilometer labyrinth filled with the galaxy's most dangerous bioengineered hunters. Most participants barely survived it. Many didn't. Jiggy and Alex entered at dawn. They emerged 6 hours later, not only alive but having somehow befriended 3 of the predators, which followed them out like trained pets. "We gave them some food from our packs," Alex explained. "Once they realized we weren't prey, they got really curious. This one," he gestured to a creature that looked like a fusion of a tiger and a scorpion, "likes to play fetch." Vexler stared. "That creature has killed 17 Academy candidates." "Yeah, but nobody tried being nice to it." When it was over, when Jiggy and Alex stood at the finish line after completing Omega-7 in 14 days, shattering the previous record of 41 days, Vexler finally asked the question that had been gnawing at him. Why was this easy for you when beings far stronger and more adapted have failed?" Jiggy considered the question, glancing at Alex, who was trying to convince the maintenance crew to let him keep one of the predators as a pet. "Commander," she said finally, "you built this course using the worst conditions you could imagine. Extreme cold, extreme heat, acid, predators, minimal resources. You designed it to be the ultimate test of survival." "Yes. The thing is, Earth is like that, not one environment, but all of them. We evolved on a planet where you can find every single one of these conditions. Deserts hotter than your thermal canyons, poles colder than your frozen wastes, oceans more acidic than your marshes. And we didn't just survive there, we thrived. We made homes in every biome. We're the only species we know that can live literally anywhere on our planet." She smiled. This wasn't impossible for us. This was just Tuesday on Earth. Vexler's scales rippled as he processed this. Earth, a death world, and humans had evolved there, had been forged by it. "So what," he asked slowly, "would actually challenge you?" Alex overheard and turned, still grinning. "Oh man, you want to see a real challenge? Try planning a family reunion. That's impossible." As the humans laughed and began filing their completion certificates, Vexler made a note in his personal log. Recommendation: redesign Omega-7. Current specifications insufficient for human baseline capabilities. Consider classification upgrade from impossible to human warm-up exercise. The galaxy, he realized, had severely underestimated humanity. It was a mistake that would not be made again.